On everybody, welcome to another Angle of Pursuit podcast, your fantasy football, sports betting, and coronavirus home here at fakepigskin.com. I am your host, Kyle Robert. You follow me on Twitter at NotoriousKRO. With me once again is Brian Twining. What's up, Brian?
What's up, Kyle? It's still a crazy world we're living in. We got talks of baseball starting in July, but football season really never ends, and that's why we're here today.
Absolutely. And we've been talking a lot of fantasy, and we will keep that up. We have some awesome guests lined up. So we are here every Wednesday live on YouTube. If you want to join us, feel free. Come hang out, ask us questions. We're always down to have discussions. Check us out. Like I said, we'll be live. So 9 o'clock Eastern every Wednesday. But we wanted, we've kind of been neglecting that second part that we're both passionate about, and it's sports betting. And obviously, with sports not happening, betting on sports isn't really, as doable. I did dive into some UFC 249 this weekend. That was a wild experience. Did not do as well as I had on the previous, but that's okay. It's a roller coaster. But I wanted to revisit win totals. Obviously, with the schedule being released, I wanted to kind of see where our heads are at, see how we're feeling. With the draft in the books, are we feeling more confident, less confident, all that good stuff? But before we dive into that, I want to talk. I want to talk some MVP, and I want to talk some Rookie of the Year a little bit, just to see where your head's at. Because I was looking on, and we're going to use DraftKings Sportsbook for all these odds. So if you want to follow along, head over to DraftKings Sportsbook, check out all of their odds. It's a really good resource to kind of just get a gauge of where the market is and kind of what, and obviously if you're in New Jersey or wherever, you can actually go place wagers on these things. So Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, the two previous winners, those are your favorites, 4-1, 6-1. Feels pretty fair. Obviously, we haven't had a non-quarterback win since, I believe, 2002.
Is it Falk?
And it was, 2012 maybe. It was Adrian Peterson. That's why I know that.
Oh, that's right.
But yeah, so it definitely, much like the Heisman Trophy, has become an award pretty much, for the quarterback, and it's basically been one of the best quarterbacks. Yeah, so let's see here. So yeah, 2012 was Adrian Peterson. Before that was LaDainian Tomlinson, 06. And Sean Alexander 05, and then Marshall Faulk in 2000. So it's basically since 2000, basically 20 years, we've had three players that are not quarterbacks win the award. They've had an amazing season. So it feels really fair to see Mahomes and Lamar and Russell and Dak Prescott, Tom Brady win. But as you take a glance at this list, is there anything that pops out to you? Anything you see that's strange? Anything that you see that there's some value there? Anything you like?
I mean, we've talked about it time and time again, and we always talk about how we're not really going to make wagers on the guys that are at the top of the list. So I automatically skip past guys like Mahomes, Jackson, Russell Wilson. I don't even start to begin to look at people I'd be entertained taking until we get to Dak Prescott. But even him, like, there's just a list of dudes that could blow up. Yeah. And, I'm looking at a guy like, say, Baker Mayfield, who we all expected him last year to come out of this funk and just show out. I mean, I'm not confident in him, but he's got the pieces around him now. If they can put more wins on the board, who's to say he can't throw for 30 touchdowns and potentially steal an MVP award?
And the one thing is, like, this point last year, Lamar Jackson was like 66-1, 50-1, depending on where you looked. And then all of a sudden everything clicked for him and he had an amazing season. And by the end, he was like minus 1,000 to win the award. So, and he ended up taking home the hardware. I think Baker Mayfield's a great call. I think 33-1 is good odds. And I mean, obviously he's higher than a good majority, but he's not single digits. He's above 20, 25-1. he has a new coach. If the offense comes together with Austin Hooper and Njoku and Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb, like all the pieces are there. Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry. They obviously added Donovan Peoples-Jones from that team up north. So they're obvious. Everything's there. When you
they've put the pieces around him to be successful.
Yeah, you want to craft the narrative. Okay, how does this look? What is this? Is there a world? Obviously, you don't have to love Baker Mayfield, but you can say he has the offensive weapons. He has a new coach. He goes from a team last year where he looked awful. All of a sudden, he looks great, and the team wins 10, 12 games. There's your MVP award right there. And I don't mind taking a shot, especially because I'm not going to be betting thousands of dollars. So I want to take a couple gambles here and see if I can't find me a winner. Like, if you want to go and put a couple $100 on Mahomes or Lamar, I get it. But I like taking the upside shots, and there's always going to be an opportunity with someone like Mahomes, with someone like Lamar, where you might be able to actually get a better number in season, where if someone's taking advantage. Like, I took a shot on Mahomes last year when he had his knee injury, because the number ballooned. It was like, I think it was 4 or 5 to 1 to start, and I got it in double digits, and I was like, that's a good gamble. Obviously Lamar kept his thing going, but you're not going to get, there's no reason to bet those numbers now, because it's not going to get much lower. Like, maybe Lamar goes to 5 to 1, but like, you're not really missing out on that much value, where you could wait even till October and November and probably get just as good a number and have a lot more confidence in it.
It's true. But I mean, like, so sticking to that point real quick, though, is like a guy like Dak Prescott, who is 12 to 1 right now. I kind of expect to see that number like go down to more 10 to 1, maybe 9 to 1, just with like the fever pitch post draft of them taking CeeDee Lamb. Like, he's just been loaded up. The barrel is loaded right now with plenty of bullets, and people are expecting them to come out firing on all cylinders. So,
for me, he's right there with Russell Wilson, and Russell Wilson's 7 to 1. So
yeah, exactly.
Getting 12 to 1, I feel like there is value there. And as we talked about, if you missed the last win total show, I'm a big proponent of the Cowboys this year. I think there's a lot going right, and obviously adding CeeDee Lamb is only going to help Dak's chances of putting up a monster season. So that's a 13-win team. That's competing for the NFC crown, and Dak's putting up monster numbers. I could totally see that. And at 12 to 1, I'm willing to look in that way. I think that's the lowest I would go. Like, of the guys that are inside the 20 to 1 range, like Tom Brady, that I'm not touching with the 10 foot goal.
Oh no.
Especially and I think, with the quarantine, we don't know what the offseason is going to look like. Consistency is going to be king, and having that Cowboys offense basically coming back, sans Jason Garrett, like the sky is the ceiling is the roof, as MJ was.
Yep. Yeah, because I mean, those guys they're super familiar with the playbook. The only person that they have to work into the offense is CeeDee Lamb, and he's not going to be thrust into a like starring role right away. So he's more of a complimentary piece to begin the season anyway. So, this offense should be hitting on all cylinders with or without training camp.
Yeah, my favorite odd. When I was reading through this list, that something jumped out to me. You tell me what names sounds unfamiliar. All these players are 50 to 1 to win the award. So Jimmy Garoppolo, Christian McCaffrey, Ben Roethlisberger, Matthew Stafford, Matt Ryan, Jared Stidham. Excuse me, what?
Yeah, I don't know where they come up with putting him in those names. Like, even last year with the all-time great in Tom Brady, there was no chance in hell anybody was going to vote him MVP, and they went 11-5. Yeah. Are we expecting this Patriots team to go 14-2?
I don't know. I was doing my projections for this team, and it's very bleak. Like, I don't know if I'm going to have any Patriots on my fantasy teams. Like, I have some N'Keal Harry shares on my dynasty squads, but I think that's it. Like, so even Sony Michel, like, I don't want his 3.4 yards a carry in an anemic offense not scoring touchdowns. Like, I'll look elsewhere for running back. So, no, I don't like that. I think Cam Newton is interesting, but I don't know where he's going. And I mean, like 66-1, there's good opportunity there if he ends up starting somewhere. But at this point, who knows? Your boy Drew Lock 70-1. Yeah, I don't. You have to have a good mix of elite play plus your team has to be good. So like Daniel Jones, I think is gonna have a nice season, but I don't think it's gonna be.
Yeah, the team success won't be there.
Yeah, and like we talked about, mostly quarterbacks. So like Dalvin Cook at 66, Saquon and McCaffrey at 50, Derrick Henry at 40. Like those would be the names that if you thought, a running back might win the award, that's pretty decent value. But like the Panthers are probably winning 5, 6, 7 games if they have a great season. Ditto for the Giants. Derrick Henry could be the reason the Titans return, but after last year, I think people kind of like if the Titans are good, they expect Derrick Henry to shoulder the load. So it's not like you can't craft the story of, oh my God, the Titans came out of nowhere, went to the AFC Championship game, because they did that last year and he still wasn't enough to supplant Lamar. So Phil Rivers at 60-1, I kind of like. As much as I hate to say it, like I'm a Titans fan. I don't want them to be good, but I think they're going to be really good.
Oh yeah, I love the Colts this year. I mean, we're getting a competent thrower of the football. I mean, nothing against Jacoby Brissett, but at times it seemed like they were afraid to call plays reliant on him getting the ball down the field, where they have a guy who's perfectly fit for those kind of gunslinging moments in Phillip Rivers. And, if they put a couple more wins on the board, they have a young, good defense. He's primed to make a run at the MVP with the pieces that he's got around him too, and the division they're playing in.
Yeah, and I want to talk about one of those pieces because I think Jonathan Taylor at 10-1 to win Offensive Rookie of the Year is very nice. Obviously, I think there's a little more flexibility for Rookie of the Year. If Joe Burrow comes out and has a solid season, puts up really good numbers, and the Bengals, even if they only win 5 or 6 or 7 games, I think Joe Burrow could easily take home the hardware. Tua, I don't know that Tua is going to play enough games to warrant the award. So even at 10-1, I don't know. Do you think he's good enough to take home that? Do you think even if he plays, say, 12 games, do you think that's going to be enough? Yeah, I'm kind of
we've talked about this before. I just don't think that the offense is ready to make that next step yet that would propel Tua into that kind of discussion right now. I mean, being in the AFC East, where he's going to be playing against 2 of the probably top 5 pass defenses in the NFL in Buffalo and in New England. So, he's not really anybody I'd be looking at. One of the guys that kind of piques my interest is Keyshawn Vaughn, who, if he takes over that receiving role for Tampa Bay and he starts to get more run with Tom Brady and that offense is churning out 500 plus yards a game, he could easily be the surprise guy on this list at 20-1 odds. I think that's great value.
Yeah. I like Justin Herbert at 60-1 or 16-1 rather. I know that,
it's going to be the Tyrod show.
But it's not, that's the thing. And I just I think that team's good enough where it could win 10 or 11 games, and he's got pieces in Eckler, Keenan Allen. And, I'm really having struggles with that team too, for doing projections, just because I want to project Herbert as a rookie quarterback, which is not very pretty. But trying to keep the other pieces, I think the Chargers are going to be one of those teams where everything either goes really well and it looks really good, or it just does not work and they're clearly a piece, a season away. But I think Cam Akers is interesting. If he gets the full workload, I think he could have a Josh Jacobs, Nick Chubb rookie season where he really takes over. But yeah, I think if I'm betting any of these, I'm betting Jonathan Taylor at 10-1 and hoping for that 1,000-yard, 15 touchdown season that I think is very much on the cards for him.
I think out of all of the guys that we're kind of discussing right now, he kind of fits into what we were saying about team success as well as individual kind of numbers. And if we're both expecting the Colts to vie for the potential divisional crown and more than likely a playoff spot. And if he is getting the vast majority of the carries there, we're looking at 1,000+ easy with that offensive line. And I mean, you're not going to turn down Rookie of the Year unless, like you said, Joe Burrow just goes lights out, throws 30+ touchdowns, and doesn't have a Jameis Winston style 30-30 season.
Right, and unlike MVP, the past winners of this award, Kyler Murray, obviously a quarterback, but before that, Saquon Barkley, Alvin Kamara, 2 running backs. Dak was 16. Before that, Todd Gurley, Odell Beckham, Eddie Lacy. There's some more quarterbacks.
Eddie Lacy, wow.
Eddie Lacy was a Rookie of the Year. Robert Griffin III was a Rookie of the Year. Sam Bradford was a Rookie of the Year. Cadillac Williams was Rookie of the Year.
Oh, man.
Vince Young behind him. Like, the Rookie of the Year is not a precursor for like an amazing career. Like, there is names like Matt Ryan in there and Odell Beckham and Todd Gurley and Dak Prescott, but there's also other names that I mean, in the late 80s, Troy Stradford won the Rookie of the Year. I don't even know who that is, and I consider myself a highly knowledgeable NFL fan, so it's really interesting. And then old 96, Mr. Eddie George, 96 Rookie of the Year, obviously set up for an amazing career. But let's talk some win totals now that the schedule's out. Thanks to quarantine, I've had time to actually go through the whole schedule and put in wins and losses for where my head was at, and nothing insanely crazy came apart. But I did find a couple teams, Brian, that I want to run by you. That I was there was 2 that I was higher on, and I don't usually like going with overs. But I feel like the value is so much in that camp that I had to do it. And the first one's the Colts over 8.5. I have them as a 12-win team, and that might be a bit aggressive, but even if it's a 2 games too aggressive and they're a 10-win team, I'm still getting the over by 1.5 games. And you have to lay one -155 at DraftKings, but I feel like that's still I still feel like there's some if I'm gonna be putting my money in and letting it sit and wanting a reward at the end of the year, I feel like that's a wise investment.
Yeah, I mean, we've already talked about it. We both feel the Colts are right there in the hunt for a playoff spot, which is going to be probably double digits, 10 wins. And, I think they're probably a better team with the addition of Phillip Rivers than the Tennessee Titans and the Houston Texans, who I have no faith in whatsoever, just with Bill O'Brien at the helm. Like, they really have no clue what they're doing, and they still don't field a very decent offense. Defense. Yeah. So if I'm putting my eggs in a basket, it's going to be in Indianapolis and no Phillip Rivers. Yeah.
Trying to remember the other one. Whoa, that's right. This has been an ongoing debate. I like the Raiders, and I still like the Raiders, and I like what they did. And I know they're like not amazing, but their over under is set at 7 -125. Like, I feel like this is a team that has 9-7 and is kind of like, obviously they're John Gruden Oakland Raiders. They could go awful. I think they could win 2 games, but I think their floor honestly is like 9 or 10 wins. Okay, maybe not their floor, but I feel like this is a double-digit win potential team that if things don't go right, they win, or don't go perfect. They're an 8 or 9 win team, and you're still hitting the over. And I don't know.
I mean, I could totally see that, because we talked about this in our win total pod about how that division in particular is going to be really tightly contested after the Chiefs. Mm-hmm. And to that point, I'm going to say the Denver Broncos, their odds actually got better for the over 7.5. Like, you gained, it went from -125 down to -115. And, that's got to be with the schedule release. They got some pretty tough road games there. But, if I'm going to pick a team in the AFC West not named the Chiefs, I'm going with Denver to get into that 8-9 win floor level of victories and sneak into one of those last wild card spots.
Yeah. Yeah, and their schedule is interesting. They open up with the Monday nighter against the Titans in the second game of the Monday night opening. Then they go to Pittsburgh, and then they come home for Tom Brady and the Bucks. And then they do get the AFC East, so that'll be really interesting. I think if the Jets, New England, and Miami all aren't very good, they could get 3 wins right there, and then you just need them to find 5 other ones. The problem is they get the AFC South, and so that means they're going to Atlanta. They're welcoming New Orleans.
I think they beat the Falcons.
Yeah, they have to go. They go to Carolina, which if you're going to play, I'd rather play New Orleans at home, Carolina on the road. That's kind of the Raiders thing. Like I'm looking at their schedule. They start at Carolina, which, on the road is never ideal. But if you're going to start on the road against Bridgewater and company making their first start, I think that's a team that gets better as the season rolls along. Then they host the Saints. Then they go at New England, home for Buffalo, at Kansas City. They could be 4-2 going into their bye week, and then they come out and play Tampa Bay, Cleveland, the Chargers, Denver. Like there is some winnable games, and I honestly if we it's going to come down to the games I think between the Raiders and the Broncos to see who can be that team that's 9-7 instead of 7-9 or 6-10.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, their 2 contests are more than likely going to decide who is going to be that second team. But, I'm going to say it again. I'm going to caution both of us and the viewers who are taking our advice. None of us are talking about the Chargers, and they except for Phillip Rivers and Melvin Gordon, who Gordon made really little to no impact on the team last year. They haven't made very many changes to a defense who we all expect to be one of the most talented again. If guys stay healthy, they're going to be one of the most ferocious pass rushing teams in the NFL. And like you said about Justin Herbert being kind of a sneaky play for Offensive Rookie of the Year, if he takes over at the helm, they could be one of those teams that gets to 9-7, even 10-6, just riding their defensive play.
Yeah, and I think it really comes down to how you feel about Justin Herbert and what he could be this year. Because I think to your point, I think if you want to invest in the Chargers, I think a win total over, I think in a Justin Herbert Rookie of the Year ticket is a nice little, 1-2 to put into your investment portfolio for the season. As in, I'm getting behind, and that way you don't have to. I mean, obviously you can bet them all year long and find value, especially early. If you're going to be an investor, if you're going to be a fan, I think the Chargers are going to be good. I'm going to get behind them early. Betting their odds early is going to be a good way to go. But I think getting that Rookie of the Year ticket, getting the win total over, and then hoping the Raiders and Broncos just suck, which is very, 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 very possible, given the recent track record and who runs those teams and all that stuff. Brian, is there any other numbers that as we run, you kind of look through the list that really step out to you?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now, and I can't believe they're still offering plus money on this, but that's the Buffalo Bills at over 9 at plus 103. Yeah. They won 10 games last year, and, they didn't have Stephon Diggs. They were running out there with Little John Brown and Cole Beasley as their 1 and 2 on the outside. Devin Singletary was a rookie. They had old man Frank Gore. Now they've gotten younger with Zach Moss, and Singletary's going to take over. They added Stephon Diggs. The defense is still going to be ridiculously good. They get a lot of their toughest games at home. I've been looking at their schedule here. They get to play Kansas City at home, New England or Seattle at home, Pittsburgh at home. I mean, those are 3 tough places that you don't want to be playing on the road, and they get them all up in Buffalo. So,
yep.
And in a division, like you had already said, both Miami and the Jets and New England are likely not going to be very good. So we're looking at, they could potentially sweep the division, and then they only need 3 wins to get the push.
Well, and the thing I might like even more, Brian, is the Bills are plus 145 to win the division. So you just need them to be the best team, and that could, that is reasonable to be 8-8 or 9-7 even. So maybe you do get a push, or maybe it doesn't quite hit the over, but you can still win the division and you get plus money. So if you want to get behind the Bills, I think that might even be a better way to go.
Yeah, I think that's a great way because you're almost guaranteeing a win in one way or the other. Because for them not to reach 9 wins would be a major disappointment for them coming off of last season.
Yeah, right now I have them as a 10-win team and winning the division by 5 games. The Patriots, I have for 5 wins. They're over under set at 9. I really want to bet the under, but like I feel like Belichick could do some voodoo and like I don't know, this team could be weird and all of a sudden they're winning 10 games, but like I don't actually think that, but it's messing with my mind just enough where I don't really want to go that route.
I mean, who's to say that we're in week 3, they're 0-2. Jared Stidham has been an absolute disaster. And if he hasn't signed yet, we see big old Cam Newton running the show in New England.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's
and believe me, if they signed Cam Newton and they put him as their starting quarterback for all the crap I talk about Cam and how I don't think he's that good of a passer, if he was playing under Belichick, they would devise some sort of plan. It'd be like a Tim Tebow offense on steroids, and they would be a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I do kind of like taking the under on Kansas City and Baltimore. 11 wins for Baltimore feels like a lot. Especially, I feel like 11-5 is kind of like where they're going to get. I mean, obviously, after last year, could they do better? Sure. But I think the division is better this year. I think Cincinnati is not a train wreck. I actually think Cleveland could be good, and like I like the Browns over. Like I think they could be the second best team in this division. The Steelers are going to be the question mark. If Big Ben comes back and actually looks healthy, and actually looks like he cares, this could be a 10-win team too. But who knows what Ben's going to look like, especially coming out of quarantine. We saw what happened last year where he looked very Matt Patricia like with his beard and kind of just big. That's the general Big Ben. But
hey, if he can still sling it, what do they care?
Yeah, or that could be another landing spot for Cam Newton too, and then it could completely mess it up. But man, Chargers 7.5. That's something.
Well, it's just that it's that whole division is so muddled after Kansas City that they're all kind of on the same level as far as where we kind of think they're going to be able to get to in the win total. I mean, for me, I'm choosing Denver. I almost called them Oakland, Las Vegas, and the Chargers, like we talked about, they're the dark horse this year.
Yeah. What about the NFC North? I think there's obviously 3 teams that could legitimately win the division. We'll see how good Chicago is. That it kind of throws a wrench into a lot of these teams, but Minnesota at 8.5 seems really interesting. And I'm actually looking at the NFC North. Like they are actually the favorites at plus 160 to win the division, but Packers 175, Bears are 4-1. I think it's an interesting division depending on how you feel. Like we talked a little bit about kind of what they did or didn't do for this season for Aaron Rodgers. They drafted Jordan Love. Like there's a lot that Green Bay didn't do. Like I could see that team things not going very well for them and getting some value by betting against them, betting their under, betting Minnesota to win the division, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think Minnesota for me is probably the favorite to win the division. I just like the way they just seem a little more consistent with what they're doing up there with Zimmer, and I mean, even without Stephon Diggs, like that offense is just going to be, very efficient. Cousins isn't going to force the ball down the field. He's always going to have Adam Thielen. I think we see a lot more 2 tight ends, a lot more running, Dalvin Cook, Alexander Madison. But if I'm going to make a bet on somebody, I'm going to pick the Bears. Just because if we could see Nick Foles kind of be able to get the ball down the field more consistently than what Trubisky was able to do and convert on third downs, I think they're good enough to win the division.
I just got the parlay of the century put together, and it's only 2 teams, but I absolutely love it. Somehow the Tampa Bay is the favorite to win the NFC South.
Serious?
And New Orleans is plus 110.
Oh, man.
So I took the Colts at plus 138 to win the AFC South and New Orleans at plus 110 to win the NFC South. If you parlay them over at DraftKings, it's 4-1 odds. So for every dollar you lay, you win $5.
That's embarrassing. Just the addition of Tom Brady puts Tampa Bay over the reigning division champions.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't like. I mean, if you want to get real aggressive, you go basically 12-1 and throw the Vikings in there, and you got 3+ money division winners.
It's something else. Something else I'm looking at real quick that I think is very interesting is that Seattle to win the NFC West is plus 225 when it came down to a single game at the end of the year last year to see who was going to win the division.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely an interesting call. And right now I have the Niners and Seattle as 10-6. And honestly, the Rams and Cardinals I have both at 8-8. So like I think that could be a really interesting division. And the Rams at 4-1, like I probably wouldn't bet a lot on it, but I think it's interesting enough where if you believe that this is still a good team that just went to the Super Bowl 2 years ago, still added Jalen Ramsey, if you believe Cam Akers can be a viable fantasy option, a potential rookie of the year, you know, we've talked about the Rams with Smola and kind of some of the deficiencies they have, but if this is a division where they all beat the crap out of each other and somehow the Rams were able to go 9-7 or 10-6 and win that thing at 4-1, I kind of like those odds.
Yeah, especially like you're saying, I think we're gonna see a lot of splits in the division this year where teams are gonna win on their home turf, and Arizona is gonna give people fits. Like as good as San Francisco's defense is, they had trouble with Arizona last year down in the desert, and I think they're just gonna be better than they were. And you know, so much like let's just say that the Western divisions are gonna be the Wild Wild Wests this year.
Yeah, you sound like Chris Berman. It's perfect. Perfect. Good job. All right, let's put a bow on this. We wanted to do a little quick thing there. The other thing that's really fun to do if you want to get real aggressive is you can do some make the playoff parlays and find a few teams you like. There are some interesting numbers to go through. Maybe I'll throw some stuff on Twitter with that. But at this point, Brian, now that free agency is over and the draft is over, and now it's just a matter of what OTAs may look like. Give me one or two lines that really jump out to you that if you had money and you were going to the casino and just to place bets specifically on this, that you go, okay, here's my targets.
Are we talking division winners or?
I'm talking win totals, but if the division winner odds are better.
Okay,
I don't mind going that route either. Okay,
so I have two of them. I'm gonna stick with Buffalo plus 103 at over 9. Like I think that's almost a shoe-in, which I'm sure I'll be eating crow by the end of the year.
I'm sure that will. There's no way that doesn't go poorly.
Yeah, that's not gonna go over well. And then I'm going to go to Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
I love them at over 8.5. I mean, they were right there in the playoff hunt with freaking me playing quarterback last year. If they get anything out of Roethlisberger this season, I think we see a much better Steelers offense.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think Cleveland's there yet. I have no faith in Baker, even though I said he's a good value for MVP. I have no faith in that team. Cincinnati's they're not going to compete.
Nah.
And Pittsburgh, they were the last team. I was checking out their schedule. Just like I was saying with Buffalo, they get Dallas at home, Denver at home. Let's see, who else here? They get Philly at home. They get Washington at home. They get the Colts at home. So I like them to be able to surpass that 8.5 pretty easily.
Yeah, I feel like they either blow that 8.5 out of the water or they fall short of it. I don't feel like there's a eight win season. I feel like they either go 5 or 6 wins, or Ben Roethlisberger comes back and everything's fine. I like those calls. I'm a little more bullish on the Browns, so I do like the over on the Browns, but I get why you would have some hesitation. Like they feel like either things go amazingly and they win 10 or 11, 12 games, or it completely implodes and their Case Keenum is their starter by week 6.
Hey, I think he'd be an upgrade over what we saw out of Rudolph and Hodges.
Yeah, no. I kind of like your Seattle call. I think they're a 10-win team, but it really is like I don't like to go in on teams where I feel like my margin for potentially winning the bet is so razor thin. Like if I think a team is a 9-win team and their over under is 8 or 8.5, like I'm not taking that. I really want some cushion. I think the Raiders might be my favorite bet, and they're playing in a new stadium. They have John Gruden. There's so many reasons to run away, but
hey man, go big or go home.
Exactly. I like that, and then I love the Colts over. And if one last parlay, if you want to get crazy, the Bills to win the division, the Colts to win the division, and the Saints to win the division. Parlay all three of those together pays 11.25 to 1. So if you bet $100, you'd win $1,224.
Nice.
Yeah, that's.
And those are all three totally possible.
Like, oh yeah,
those are not very far fetched at all.
Yeah, no, I think the Bills could win the division by 4 games. I think the Colts, I think they're the best. Like that division could be a little wonky, and it always is. They could all be 9-7 and make things weird. And then the Saints, I feel like I don't understand how they're not the favorite, but this is why we go off of public perception more than what the books actually think. But I just think the Saints are so talented on both sides of the ball, and we saw even last year if Brees has to miss a couple games, they turn to Jameis instead of turning to Taysom Hill, and I think
that would be exciting.
Keep it rolling for a couple weeks. All right, Brian, this was fun. We will be back on Wednesday with Michael Florio of NFL Media, of Fantrax, of Rotoballer, of everywhere. He's just absolutely killing the game. So we're going to start our new game, Fantasy 5, with him, talk about 5 guys he is pounding the table for this season. I'm sure we'll talk all kinds of other stuff in between. But for Brian Twining, I'm Kyle Robert, and we'll talk to you guys next time.
Peace.